Imagine your family member or best friend mysteriously dies. You don't think much about it because they got really sick a couple months ago, and although it was sudden and quick, you just think it was a medical condition they had. But come to find out, their partner poisoned them with insulin. This is part 3 of the Natalie Cochran case, the Ponzi scheme that killed her husband. My name is Olan Hulion and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are talking about the Natalie Cochran case. We're going to talk about the murder trial. This is a 3-part video. This is part 3. If you haven't seen part 1 and 2, I suggest you go watch them. I'm going to pick up where I left off, so you might be confused. Part 1 was about the Cochrans and what led up to Michael's death. Part 2 was the unraveling of the Ponzi scheme and what led up to the murder trial. In this part, we are going over the murder trial of Natalie Cochran. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can be notified when I post a new video. I'm also doing a reaction series over on my vlog channel. I'm reacting to the trial and interviews that some of the victims have done so far. So go over there after you watch this and watch, like, and subscribe. The channel is Olan Hulion Vlogs. Natalie Cochran has been convicted of these crimes. I pulled all of this from public resources. Please do your own research. Viewer discretion is advised. If I left anything out in this video or got something wrong, please let me know in the comments. I would greatly appreciate it. Day 1, January 13th. Judge Kirkpatrick is the judge on this trial. If you didn't watch part 2, he's about to retire. This is his last case. In fact, he was supposed to retire in December of 2024, but couldn't due to the case. There were 8 women and 4 men as the jury on this trial. Open statements were said. The prosecutors state that Michael Cochran was a healthy 200-pound man, and then he died. How did he die? Well, don't look further than the defendant and her conduct.
The state has no direct evidence, the kind of stuff that makes TV shows exciting, the kind of stuff prosecutors love, jurors love. There is no DNA. There is no evidence of fingerprints. There are no videos of what happened. But, as Judge Kirkpatrick will instruct you at the end of this, circumstantial evidence is just as valid as that type of direct and scientific evidence.
How did this happen? He mentions the morning how she contacted Jennifer asking for insulin, even though there were no diabetics in the home, and how Jennifer, being a good friend, still showed up for her. He talked about how Natalie took a picture of him on the floor and then had Michael placed on the couch instead of taking him to the hospital. Followed by John Hamilton and Stephanie Hamilton showing up at the home and telling her he needs to get checked. When he finally gets taken to the hospital, he is too far gone. They mention his blood sugar being 21, and says that Michael's mom was a former nurse and lived only 10 minutes away, and Natalie didn't contact her till 10 o'clock that night when it was too late. They transferred him to hospice a couple days later, and that's where he died. He lays the groundwork and tells who's going to testify. He states the how and then goes into the why. Talks about the Ponzi scheme and how she lied and manipulated the ones around her. And Michael didn't know what was going on. And he wanted to know what was going on. He wanted to know why all this stuff is happening. He wanted to know where their money was. The prosecutors state that they had a flight chartered for the next morning and they got canceled because her husband was about to find out and she got sick. As he closes out, they mention that she's a pharmacist and specialized in diabetic counseling, and stated that their evidence was circumstantial and by the end you'll find the right verdict. The defense gets up there and they say,
Natalie Cochran is not a nice person. She defrauded friends, relatives, investors. She was involved in a Ponzi scheme. She cheated, she scammed. But ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the fact that she perhaps a fraud, perhaps a cheat, and that you wouldn't perhaps want to invite her home for Sunday dinner, that you wouldn't like her, does not translate into being a murderer.
Which, yeah, true, but baby, everything points to the fact that she is. They keep saying that he had a steroid issue, that he was this big, bulky man that was obsessed with his physique, which there's nothing wrong with that. They said he wasn't as healthy as the prosecutors claim he was. He was pumping himself chemicals from Mexico that were not approved by the FDA. He did this to himself, not his wife. And if he were being stabbed with insulin, wouldn't you know it? Wouldn't you call the police? And on top of that, the insulin was found in the refrigerator 4 months after the accident. What if she got rid of it if she killed her husband? Wouldn't if she cremated her husband's body to get rid of any potential evidence? Which, they have valid points here, but have you ever heard of trophies? And a killer loves a good keepsake. The prosecutors were very clean and organized, like A plus B plus C equals X, while the defense was like Z plus A plus the coffee table equals the rug over there. The first witness the prosecutors put on the stand is the lead investigator for the Ponzi scheme, Robert Hinzmen. He states that when they first started looking into the Cochran business, that they were set up as a legitimate business, but as they dug deeper, there were no government contracts linked to their business, and that there were 2 state contracts, but they were never fulfilled. The state is trying to prove to the jury that Michael in fact didn't know about the Ponzi scheme because that's the motive for murder. So Robert Hinzmen mentions that on all the documents for the business that Natalie was the primary owner. This was even for applications to banks and financial institutions that said that she was a primary owner or the only owner of the company. He discusses how there's a ton of text messages to prove that Michael didn't know. He informs the jury that he got this evidence through search warrants. They took these text messages and compared it to fellow investors, and they looked very similar, leading them to believe that Michael wasn't involved in the financial crimes that Natalie was committing. The prosecutors asked if there was any evidence suggesting that Michael might turn Natalie into the authorities, and Robert Hinzmen said no, there was not. The defense gets up there and cross-examines him, and y'all, Victor kind of lays the framework that he will be pissing me off for the next 8 days or so, because every time he got up there, I was like, I can't wait for him to be an asshole. He just kept objecting every 5 seconds. It was so annoying. Anyways, the federal government filed documents that alleged that both were suspected. Victor was asking him to find where he said Cochran's, as in both, on the documents. And he said this is from earlier on before we got our hands on the evidence. And he flipped through the documents, and Victor asked him something else along the lines of, what's in those documents? And Robert Hinzmen responds and he says,
I was trying to explain all this earlier, but you objected.
I'm 3 years old.
Ooh, that made me giggle. The witness does confirm that he did say Cochran's, as in both. They brought up the kids and how they witnessed their dad work on the contracts while their mom read a book. The witness stated that they did not interview the kids due to the age at the time, and he doesn't know what happened within the home. Sidebar, the defense kept trying to paint Natalie as a sweet, innocent woman who was just reading books while her husband did all the financial crimes, as if she didn't get convicted for the damn crimes. Anyways, during the cross-examination, Victor got into an argument with Robert Hinzmen a little bit, asking where did Michael get his income, and Robert was trying to explain that they had another business named Technology Management where he ran phone lines and internet and stuff like that, and that's where he was getting some of his income. Robert didn't know the exact amount of individual income that Michael held from that company, but he knew that he was getting income from that company. Victor was asking how did they buy 3 homes, and Robert was like, they had 1 house before the Ponzi scheme and the rest of the homes was bought from the Ponzi scheme. They asked him, well, if your wife bought a home, wouldn't you want to know where the money came from? And Robert was like, yes, but Michael thought they had these legitimate funds from the contracts. He trusted his wife. There was no reason for him to question it. Victor was saying that a lot of the mail for the company was in Michael's name, and Robert was like, that doesn't mean much. That doesn't mean anything at all. Then they entered in the checks that were signed by Michael into evidence, and Robert was like, but most of them were signed by Natalie. They talked about ownership of the companies, and then they talked about the storefront that they had, and Victor asked if the business was ran from there. Robert was like, there was computers there and it looked legit, but that doesn't mean legit business was ran from there. The prosecutor redirected and confirmed that the investigation was started on March 8th of 2019, and a local business owner gave more information. It was an investor, you know, the one I talked about in part 2, it was that guy. The second witness the prosecutors brought up was Jennifer Davis, and watching her made my heart hurt, but not as bad as her husband. That man made me cry. She got up there on that stand and they asked her how she knew Michael and Natalie, and a little bit about their history. Then they asked her if Natalie ever kept diabetic supplies at the Cochran home, and she was like, no, and if they needed it, they lived too close to even worry about it. They asked her if she invested in TSG, and she said no, but her husband and business partners did, and she confirmed that the money he invested was not their personal income, so they didn't have a personal loss. They moved on to the day Michael got sick. They talked about the text that she received and how she offered up insulin. She let the jury know that it was Humalog insulin, and it was the same brand that they found in the refrigerator of the Cochran home. She confirmed that you had to have a prescription to obtain this brand of insulin. Like, she didn't just get it whenever. She got it from her. They showed her a picture of Mike on the floor.
Okay, Jennifer, can you tell me who that's a picture of?
Mike.
That's Mike.
It sounded like she was going to cry. I feel so bad for her. They showed her a screenshot of vitals that Natalie sent her, and his blood sugar being 145, and Jennifer said it was too high. Normal is anywhere from 80 to 120. They asked if Natalie told her if help was coming or not, and Jennifer said no. Then they asked if she knew anyone that was coming by, and Natalie told Jennifer that the Hamiltons were stopping by, and that the contractors were the ones to put him on the couch. She went on and said that later that night, Chris stopped by and took him to the hospital around 7, 8 o'clock that night. Then, you know, that eerie comment I told y'all that Natalie made in part 1? Well, this is where that was revealed.
Did you offer to help her at any point?
Yes, I was trying to be there for her and just comfort her. Like I said, I felt that she was been strong, but I had even asked her at one point if there was anything that I could do to help her, anything I could get for her. And she had made a very odd comment. She said if you could help me hold a pillow over his face, because I don't like seeing him this way.
Y'all, when she said that, I was like, oh no. Like, my body cringed so bad. Watch my reaction on Olan Hulion vlogs. Then it was cross-examination, and they asked Jennifer if he was okay a couple of days before, and she said that she saw him at her house because he was helping Chris with a ceiling fan, and she couldn't recall on how he was acting. They asked her about the supplements that Michael was taking, and Jennifer was like, I don't know anything about that. They asked her if Natalie was approved to pick up her son's insulin, and she said yes, but it was always returned to her, and there would be no reason for it to be at her house. They asked her how she was acting at the hospital, and she said that Natalie was acting very strong and calm. She restates that she asked Natalie if she needed anything, and Natalie said that pillow comment. Then Victor insinuates that Michael got sick from insulin. Then he was like, well, didn't you say that? And Jennifer was like, no. I don't know what his condition was caused by. He asked her if she knew about Natalie's medical history, and she said, yes, I knew her for a long time. She said that she knew that she had cancer and that it was stage 3, and then she knew about Natalie's heart condition. Victor asked her what else was insulin used for. She said she didn't know, that only she knew about diabetes, and it was used to bring your sugar down. He said something along the lines of, if she had high blood sugar, would it be strange for her to have insulin in her home? And she said, no. Natalie was taking steroids, and it was causing to make her sugar high, make her sugar rise. And Jennifer said, yes, she told me that. So when she used it, it would make it go down. Yes, that's what she told me, that. So when she used it, it would make it go down. The prosecutors redirected and asked her about the vitals that Natalie sent her, and asked if she could verify if those were real. And she said no. They asked if anyone she loved ever got really ill, and she said yes. Prosecutors asked if it ever occurred to her to take pictures. She said no. Prosecutors asked if she ever wanted to end any of her family's life because they were so ill. She said no. The third witness they called is Trooper John Hamilton. He was testifying in his civilian capacity because he was friends with the Cochrans. He's not testifying as a trooper. He talks about how he knew the Cochrans. This is kind of like a repetitive thing. They ask the witnesses how they know them, which is more for the jury and their credibility. Anyways, they went over the events of that day. And then the cross-examination. They asked about November 2018 fiasco when he was sick. They asked if he was at the hospital, and he said yes. And he was sleeping, wasn't he? And Trooper Hamilton was like, yes, but he was sedated by the doctors and was up and talking the next day. He was agitated when he woke up. Michael told them he would never go to the hospital because it was a waste of time. John said yes. That's what he said. To redirect, the prosecutors asked if Michael woke up on February 6th, and he said that he believed he looked at his wife when she was taking his temperature. Day 2. Donna Bolt was supposed to testify, but her husband had came home and asked her a question, and it happened to be about the case. And Donna didn't want to testify, and then they find out, and then it'd be labeled as a mistrial. So she wrote a letter to the prosecutors and the judge telling them what happened. Her letter was handed to them by her husband because she wasn't allowed in the courtroom because she was supposed to testify. Stephanie Hamilton testifies. I'm not going to talk much on what happened that day because we already went over that in part 1, so there's no need for me to repeat it. She talks about how Natalie claims she had cancer, and y'all, they gave this woman a whole binder of just her and Natalie's text messages. Stephanie talked about the steroids she prescribed to Natalie, and they asked if she could take the steroids without a needle. Stephanie said no. Then they went over the events of that day. They asked if she saw that picture of Michael on the ground, and she said yes, that Natalie showed her that picture. They showed her a text as well. No one should have a blood sugar of 21, prosecutor, and if they do, they're in a coma and probably near death. They asked her if Natalie was trying to make plans at the hospital, and she said she didn't remember, that they only communicated through text at the hospital because they weren't able to go see Michael. They asked her if her relationship went on after the death, and she said yes, and that they just tried to be there for her and the kids. They asked if she invested money, and she said yes. They asked, did she get any of it back? She said no. They asked if the loss of the money changed her testimony, and she said no, it did not. Cross-examined her. They asked if they could buy Humalog over the counter, and she said no, that they could buy Homolin, which is another brand of insulin. They asked her how much did she invest, and she said $15,000 to $17,000. And Victor says,
So you have $15,000 or $17,000 worth of disliking my client.
Yes, but I talked to her until the very end.
Right. You're not particularly happy about losing money to her business.
No, I'm not happy about it, but life goes on.
And somehow between the time you had this great friendship with my client and now you don't like her anymore, do you? Yes or no, ma'am?
I don't dislike her.
Or you don't dislike her?
I always try to find the good in everyone.
No, ma'am, please, yes or no? You don't like her anymore, do you?
I don't like the actions that she did.
this woman is the definition of not holding on to grudges. She just seemed so genuine, and she seemed like a great friend. Like, I would want her in my corner. For real, for real. They asked her about the time he was at the hospital. They asked about the seizures, and she was like, Natalie told me he had seizures, but I've never seen his records, so I don't know if that's a fact. They asked if someone has a seizure, is it possible to urinate themselves? She said, yes, they lose muscle control. The fact that Cochran urinated on himself if he had a seizure would be out of normal. How much Humalog would have to be injected to cause him to collapse? I'm not sure. He said, what about a valve? How much?
Sir, everyone's different
Right.
and how their body reacts to it. I may take 2 units and bottom out, but you may take 1 and bottom out.
Y'all, when she said that, I was like, get him! Get him! They keep talking about the insulin, and then they talk about Michael's quote-unquote declining health. Yeah, probably in the hands of his wife, Natalie Cochran. They talk about him being diagnosed with all of this stuff, and she was basically like, yeah, that came from Natalie, though. Then they asked her if she knew Michael didn't like hospitals, and she was like, he never told me that. She did. Asked her, Humalog takes about 15 minutes for a delayed reaction. Yes. Then it reacts well. Insulin reacts to the human body after 15 minutes, then it subsides, right? Right. So if I'm jabbed with an insulin, well, a needle, and somebody injects me with a couple of milliliters of Humalog, I'm not just going to react, right? And the medication will not just react right away, right?
So I will have about 15 minutes to call for help.
Right. That's if you knew you were injected, right?
Well, if... Right.
She ate with that one anyways. Then they went on and was like, if he knew he was injected, why didn't he ask for help, and blah, 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 blah. We have no record of this alleged victim of him calling anyone asking for help or assistance, correct? Okay. So we have no idea why he collapsed, do we? No. All right. Now I'm going to ask you this.
Mr. Cochran was at one time diagnosed with acute encephalopathy,
Okay.
the acute brain swelling, and he was prescribed a medication, and I'll try my best to pronounce it correctly. Lamotrigine. Did I say it right?
What is it?
Lamotrigine?
Okay.
Lamotrigine?
Okay.
That's a serious medication, isn't it? Very serious medication. And if you don't take it for your brain swelling, you may be dead pretty soon.
Right.
Do you know that Mr. Cochran refused to take that medication?
He did not tell me anything about that.
Do you know from anybody that he refused to take that medication?
From the defendant, yes.
Did you also know that he was prescribed a medication called Keppra? What is Keppra?
Keppra is a seizure medication.
Anticonvulsive medication.
Yes.
Treats epilepsy, treats seizures, can also treat hemorrhaging, right? Subdural hemorrhaging,
Sometimes, yes.
sometimes. Did you know that he refused to take that medication?
I did not.
The way you knew Mr. Cochran, he always appeared a model of health to you,
Yes.
didn't he? He was a man's man,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Pump.
Very fit, healthy.
Very fit, healthy, pumped iron, right?
Yes.
Wanted to be, you know, Mr. Universe. True?
I don't know about that. I think he liked to be fit because he coached a lot of sports.
Did he ever express the desire to participate in any bodybuilding competitions?
No, sir.
No. For that, he was using a certain amount of steroids, wasn't he?
I did not know that.
You didn't know that he was using supplements?
Not from him.
It's just the defendant?
The defendant told me the day at the house when he got sick that he had been taking some kind of supplements from Mexico that she had found.
Okay.
Later, she sent me a link to those supplements.
And did you look at those supplements?
Yes, the link that she sent me, they were not from Mexico.
Those supplements, some of them weren't for human consumption. I only know of one. What was it? I don't remember the name of it, but she sent me the link. If Natalie left him on the floor, would have he expired?
Most likely, yes.
Most likely, yes. And yet this cold-blooded killer had all kinds of people in the house to monitor his condition. Is that right?
To monitor it,
Well, to do something.
I did not monitor his condition.
All right, well,
Came, looked at him, told her what to do, and I left. I was there 28 minutes, sir.
Period, girl. Period. And then the prosecutors redirected. The defense is asking you that he was awake when he was injected. That's what I'm gathering. So if he was sedated or not awake, he wouldn't follow the defense's theory for the 15 minutes to call 911? Right. The defense asked on circumstances that glucose of 21 could cause brain swelling, and you agreed. Yes. Does that work in reverse? I would have to really research that. You responded to tell the defendant to blame you. What was that in reference to? I kept telling her he needed to go to the hospital. She said he would be mad if he came to at the hospital, that he would be very upset. And I told her to tell him I had been there and said he had to go. Blame me. I didn't care if he talked to me again or not. And why did you say that? Because I wanted him to get checked. How important was that to you? It was really important to me. Did she do that? No, she refused. They got up there again. He was basically saying her husband was a law enforcer and didn't bother making him go. She said, you can't make anyone go to the hospital. Why didn't you step outside and call 911? Because she refused. I can't make her do that. Then they called up the fifth witness, Court Nexsen, which was the banker at Bank of America, and that they were supposed to have that meeting with him on February 6th. He basically confirmed that they were supposed to meet that day and that she canceled. March 14th, 2019, another email was sent. They were asking for wiring information for their account, and they had $100,000 coming. Government funds were coming. Then she emailed a death certificate, state paperwork, to remove her husband. March 15th, another email is sent, and she's stating she can't log into her account. He doesn't even know she had an account. He called an attitude with Victor, and y'all, I loved it. I might insert it.
Your testimony here today in this court is that they scheduled an appointment with you and didn't show up and canceled it, right?
I would say that's incorrect. She ended up cutting checks and wrote false checks that our team knew, and this got all crumbled because you were dealing with a very sophisticated financial institution.
Your Honor, I move to strike this answer and instruct the jury. I think I'm done with this witness.
All right. Sixth witness got up there, Joshua Curns. He was a pilot for an aviation company. February 5th, Natalie Cochran asked for him to fly. Then she canceled the flight. Victor asked if they knew Michael. He said no. Then later on, he complimented this guy's physique, and the guy was like, thank you. And then Victor proceeds to ask if he ever worked out with Michael. And the dude is like, I don't know these people. I was just trying to do my job. Chris Davis gets up there and testifies, and this is Michael's best friend, and I just felt for him. He states that he saw Michael a couple of days before, and he didn't seem sick. They went over some of their text messages from a couple days before about money coming, and at the Smith house they talked about the first time he got sick and how they found mold spores and Michael's spinal fluid, and he states that this information came from Natalie. They talked to him about the Mexican supplements, and he said that Michael never mentioned those supplements, and that he only heard about them the day from Natalie, and that the only supplements he knew about were the ones purchased at GNC, and that Natalie would prepare them for him. Michael was working on getting his pilot's license, and he was sad that he wouldn't be able to fly, and Chris was like, no dude, you're going to be good, you'll just have a medical restriction. This was something that they were doing together. Then he kind of went in about the day of those events. He was talking about when he got there, he was checking to see if there was anything wrong.
And so I go over to him.
Take a moment, you're okay.
Difficult now because I know the outcome.
When you went to him, what did you do?
So I go over to him and I'm like, hey man, you need to wake up. Kind of shove him, wiggle him a little bit. Natalie had told us, because that's who it specifically came from, that he had fallen and hit his head earlier. So I'm actually looking for, like, do I see anything? And we've been told about this seizure that he supposedly had, and I don't know what happens when you have a seizure, the outcome, or so I'm just looking. So I'm trying to kind of nudge him, wake him up, shake him. Hey man, you need to get up. You need to get up. Hey buddy, you got to talk to me. And he's just laying there, and it's he's non-responsive. He's just laying there.
They asked him if he was there earlier in the day, and he said yes, that he was dropping off a care package, and that they asked him if he knew what was in there, and he said no, he did not. Cross-examination, March 22nd, 2019. He told a lieutenant that he witnessed Michael to be mentally struggling while putting up a ceiling fan. He says he doesn't remember what he told the lieutenant, but he remembers the event where they were putting a ceiling fan up at his house and Michael was doing the wiring. He doesn't remember what he told the lieutenant exactly. And then Victor goes,
Is it true that in February of 2019, Michael Cochran was struggling mentally and was not feeling good?
He was stressed, waiting on his money.
I didn't ask you that.
And
I
so
asked you whether yes or no, sir. Did he struggle mentally?
I believe that, again, he was definitely struggling because of his stress.
I didn't ask you why, sir.
So I do believe he was struggling mentally.
Your Honor, I'm sorry. Please instruct the witness to answer my question.
I think he did answer it towards the last. So let's move on.
Did he appear sick? No. Did you witness him to have an outbreak in anger and stress? He said he doesn't remember what he told the officer, but if that's what he told the officer, then that would be true because he was stressed. Do you have any knowledge of Mike taking supplements or anything like steroids to further his physique? Due to Chris's knowledge, he doesn't think he was taking steroids or anything like that. He just took workout supplements. Did Michael have a seizure in November? He went to the hospital due to those same conditions on February 6th. The same conditions?
No, he did not.
No, he did not.
Because in February of 2019, he was unresponsive. In November of 2018, he was talking to me, vomiting, and participating in wanting to go to the hospital. So they were two different.
He told the officer that Michael wanted him to take him to the hospital. Once he was in the hospital, he wanted to leave. Did he claim he would never go back to the hospital? Over the 10 years I knew him, he stated several times he didn't want to go back to the hospital. But sidebar, who does want to go to the hospital? Did you learn that he might have a mass on his brain? That's correct. Then the diagnosis was changed to brain swelling. That's probably correct. He didn't speak to the doctor and he doesn't remember that specifically. Chris is like, dude, check his medical records. Simple as that. I don't think he was diagnosed with any of this crap. I think it just came from Natalie. And if he was diagnosed with this stuff, why wasn't his medical records in evidence? I think she was poisoning him for a while. And in November was just a test run. Also, if you watch them testify, they all say they heard his medical diagnosis and medical conditions from Natalie. Never him. Anyways, they asked him about his son and his diabetes issue and how much insulin as he needed. And he was like, well, it just depends on what he eats and it's just situation specific. Victor asked if Michael was a bodybuilder. And Chris was like, I've never known him to be a bodybuilder. He just liked being in good shape. And saying he's a bodybuilder is a little much. Then he was like, he participated in tough man competitions. Yeah, and he won. They went back to talking about February 6th, and Victor asked if he saw any syringes when he was there, and he was like, I don't recall. And then the prosecutors redirected, and they showed him the picture of him on the floor.
Not only did she not try to hide it, she sent this picture to a whole bunch of people, including Jennifer Davis, correct?
Correct.
You know, our state moves to state 6, which I cleverly forgot to do.
Any objection?
I'm sorry.
It's number 6. State's number 6.
No, Your Honor.
It is admitted.
It's all the questions the state has, Your Honor. Thank you.
Anything further, Mr. Victor?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
May this witness be excused?
So far as the state's concerned, yes, sir.
You know, he had my heart like, ugh, I cried with him. The next witness is called, and her name is Glenda Epperly. She was a retired registered nurse. She was a hospice nurse during the time of Michael's death. February 10th, she was working 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Michael arrived to hospice while she was in report. About 7 to 8 o'clock that night, the day shift was reporting off to the night shift. Another nurse got Mr. Cochran in and did his release from the ambulance. Then at 8 o'clock, she made her first entry into the room. While she was in report, she was told that they were getting a transfer from Charleston Area Hospital. He was a younger person. She was told he had fallen at home and had a brain injury. He had a head injury and wasn't able to be treated. He was coming to hospice to pass away. He arrived there at 7:45 on the notes, so she thinks he got there around 7:30 to 7:45. When he arrived to hospice, he was moaning and moving his feet around. He appeared to be in discomfort. The goal was to get him comfortable. They were trying to get him settled in. The prosecutor asked if he appeared in pain. What did you do about that? And they gave him medicine every 15 minutes, and he didn't settle down until about 10 o'clock that night. He died after midnight. There was nothing they could do when he got there. She said, correct. The goal was to make him comfortable. They cross-examined her. Victor got up there. Michael's wish was not to be on life-sustaining equipment, which was found in his will of power of attorney document.
I was not aware initially.
But you found that out later?
Yes.
And you were aware, or eventually became aware, that it was Michael's wish embodied in those documents not to be resuscitated or put on life-sustaining equipment. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Do you recall that Natalie was there the entire 5 hours? Yes. Were you aware that Mike had a constellation of physical and internal problems? When I went in there at 8 o'clock, I started giving him medicine every 15 minutes, so I didn't have an opportunity to read his full medical history. They asked if he was in a coma-like state. She responded, yes, he was.
He did not respond to any verbal commands to open his eyes or move a particular extremity. His pupils were reactive to light, but that was it.
She knew that the report from the hospital basically said he was brain dead, or that he had a brain injury and there was no chance of recovery. Day 3, the first witness they call up for the day is Jason Bowen. He was one of the Cochran's former contractors. He was one of the men that put Michael on the couch. His business partner, Jonathan, the other contractor that worked for the Cochrans, died March 30th, 2020 due to a car accident. He went over the events of that day. In November, he said that Michael told him several times that he felt sick and was complaining of dizziness during the November incident when he got into the black mold. He told them...
He said he felt like he'd been poisoned.
He also stated that he was told by Natalie that Michael suffered from brain swelling. There's the theme here, people! Natalie saying it. Anyways, redirect. While he was there, he saw her take his vitals, but didn't see the data himself. She told him what it was, but doesn't remember. They asked if they were capable of taking him to the hospital, and he said yes, and that they asked if she wanted them to take him to the hospital. He didn't say that he wouldn't go to the hospital. He said he would never go back to Raleigh General Hospital. The rest of the day was kind of boring. When I was watching this, I did everything in my power to keep my eyes open, but day 4 and 7 was way worse. Take my wins when I can get them, I guess. The next witness they called was Joseph Stevens. He was an FBI forensic chemist. He looks at the evidence, does testing, and then issues a report based on that evidence. He's been there for 8 years. They asked him to identify the valves that were tested, and one of those were insulin.
State's Exhibit 14 is a vial that's labeled as Humalog Insulin List Pro. 10 milliliters, 100 units per milliliter.
This was the first time we see the insulin in court. We also find out that the steroids that Stephanie prescribed to Natalie was never used. And you know the valve that Natalie gave Donna that she handed over at the hospital and that Donna handed to the police the day that they showed up at her house. And it was actually a fertility hormone in that bottle and not what was on the label. They never state this in court, but it's kind of left to everyone to put the pieces together themselves. So she needed needles for insulin. She knew Jennifer was going to give her the insulin because she's a good friend. She just needed needles, and when you're prescribed a steroid and it's a shot from the valve, it will come with needles from the pharmacy. And you have to remember, this was once her job, so she knows this. Day 4, they have the medical examiner, Dr. Kubiczek, from the first autopsy talk about the body and how it was really hard to tell anything due to the decomposition of the body. So he couldn't find the cause of death and couldn't locate the injection site if insulin was used. The second witness of the day was Dr. Diane Krieger, an endocrinologist and diabetes expert. She testified that when Cochran was admitted to the hospital on February 6, 2019, his glucose level was 21, severely low, and may have been caused by a massive dose of insulin. She said that there's a test that could have been performed before treatment, and it would have determined whether Michael's hypoglycemia was related to insulin, but those tests were not done. She continued and stated Michael's death was related to hypoglycemia, which caused his cerebral edema in brain swelling. Third witness was FBI forensic examiner Earl Gliem. He examined the vials recovered from Natalie's home and concluded that the cap on the top of the valve containing insulin had been punctured. The other FBI agent just tested what was inside the vials while he examined the outside of the bottle. Day 5, Dr. Uribe testifies, and besides the people close to Michael like Stephanie and Chris, this was one of my favorite witnesses that the prosecutors put on the stand. He was just so smart, and you could just see his wheels turning when he was speaking. It was fascinating. Dr. Uribe is a forensic pathologist. He did the second autopsy after Michael's body was exhumed the second time. The body was so badly decomposed that he said that there was only bones left and tissue that was chalk-like and in no use. He said that whoever embalmed the body did a terrible job. They found nothing in the body, but said he used his medical and clinical knowledge to say that insulin was the cause of death. He said you could tell insulin was in the body because they gave him something to make his sugar go up, and once it did, it would shoot right back down, meaning that insulin was in the body combating the medicine that we were giving. They also showed a cute little chart for it as well. It was interesting to look at. I'll try to insert it if I can. The second witness that testifies is Timothy Bledsoe, state trooper and lead investigator. He investigated her for the Ponzi scheme, which led to the death of Michael. They revealed that they knew Michael wasn't involved in the Ponzi scheme because of texts like this. Natalie stated in the text that she wasn't transparent with Michael on all the contracts that were in the works. They discussed the audit and how it was used as a distraction and that there was no evidence of an actual audit. Natalie would always tell Michael that she was on the phone with Betsy. She was fake. In fact, this woman went to church with them and died in the fall of 2018, but this woman doesn't exist. Like, the character she built, not real. They discussed how the government shutdown was used as a distraction as well. He talked about how Michael was mad that their accounts were being closed, and Chris Davis was summoned to calm him down. We talked about that in part 1. So I'm not going to go into too much detail. He talked about how he interviewed Natalie and her stories of what happened to Mike changed. Just like it did the day of the accident. Her story changed like 5 times, y'all. So when I say her story changed like 5 times, I'm not kidding, y'all. It changed literally 5 times. The first time she was talking about how he walked into the kitchen and had a seizure and then lowered himself to the floor. And then the second time he was at the sink throwing up, had a seizure, hit the floor. The third time was that he was sick throwing up at the sink and that he had a seizure, hit his head, and then the floor. And then the 5th one was something else. But my point is, she just kept changing her story. And if you like listen to part 1 and 2, probably just part 1, most of it, like you could tell that her story was gradually changing. And I don't know if any of you ever caught this during part 1, but remember in the first text she sent, she was like, my fever's 103, and then later on she asked Stephanie for a thermometer, saying that she didn't have one. And she also sent a text to Stephanie that day saying that her fever was blah 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 and that she was sick. But yeah, her story kept changing a million times, and then she wasn't keeping her stuff straight at all. She said that she found a bottle of anthophyllene fish straight on the counter that day. Even the second interview, it was in the cabinet. This was what she handed Donna at the hospital, and it ended up being that fertility drug. The third interview, she told him that that they went their separate ways that morning, and when she got home, he was asleep on the couch for about 45 minutes to an hour, and when he woke up, he walked into the kitchen and collapsed. She introduced in that interview that Michael was allegedly using insulin and that he used it for bodybuilding, and he kept insulin and needles in the home to do so. Bledsoe asked her if she ever injected him to assist him in that, and she said no, that she did not, and that he would inject himself. Bledsoe asked her if he had a preferred injection site that he liked using, and she said different areas, but the one that stood out was in the back, and that was just odd to him. He was there to give her a receipt of everything that they obtained from the home, and she started flipping through the papers and put her finger on the page and pointed and said that the bottle of insulin that they took was for her neighbor's kid. And he said, thank you for that information. And then they concluded in love. Cross-examination. He kind of goes over February 6th and how Michael was determined to go to that meeting with the Bank of America, even if he had to go by himself. He even told the banker he would travel back to West Virginia and get Natalie to sign what she needed to and get it notarized. He wanted to know where that money was. The state rested their case. The Cochrans team asked for an acquittal, and Judge Kirkpatrick refused and said no, that the state had spent too much money, too much time and resources on this case for it not to finish out. Then he talked to Natalie about her right to testify, and she told him that he would. Day 6, it's the defense's time to shine and bring up all their witnesses, which they did a terrible job. Anyways, we're just here. The first to testify was Brianna Hawley. She was a registered nurse at the middle school that the kids went to. She claims that she was instructed by the Davises that Natalie would be the person to call if they weren't able to come administer the Davises' son with insulin. But if this was true, she would have had paperwork to back her up, because they don't just do word of mouth. You gotta sign some shit at schools now these days. Yes, they do. The second witness they call is Nicole Cochran. She testifies, and I'm not gonna say much about her and the kids' testimony. The kids' testimony seemed coached, and they're already being badmouthed on the internet, and I'm just not okay with that. They were young when this happened. They've been with Natalie up until she went to prison, and then they went to Natalie's parents. They've been in that environment, so it is what it is. She talked about how her mom quit being a pharmacist in 2016 and 2017. She said that her dad took like a plateful size of supplements. She said that she never saw her mom working on the contracts, that it was her dad always working on them. He told her and her brother some nice things in November because he didn't know if he would ever be able to tell them. He told her he appreciated her intelligence. She always considered that to be her goodbye. She said that her dad seemed agitated and angry leading up to February 6th. She said that her mom was distraught after their dad's death. They cross-examined her, but it's the prosecutors cross-examining now. She claims she never saw her mom work on the contract. She said she constantly saw her dad on the computer and constantly making phone calls. He told her he was working on federal and state contracts. I am working on the contracts, he would tell her every day. The third witness for the day was Timmy Lowery. This is Natalie's sister. Out of the people that testified on her behalf, she was my favorite. She just seemed genuine, and she just seemed like a good person. She recalls a time that they were at the beach with them. She came out of her bedroom and he was in the kitchen, Michael was, and she saw him take an injection. But she said that the kids were younger when this happened. He told them he never wanted to be at the hospital again. He said he never wanted to wake up at a hospital and said that he would be mad and furious if it ever happened. Penny recalls that time that they were at a football game.
I was a principal at a school at a time, and I said, if things keep going well, would you consider donating some, he liked, physical activity. I said, would you consider donating some stuff to my school? And he said, yeah. He said, why don't you do some of these too? He said, there's a lot of educational ones we can help you find, and you can work on them as well.
She said anytime they went out, he would pay, and only one time he let them pay. She said he did a lot for her daughter. He would take her places with the kids. The family went to Disney, and her daughter went with them. She talked about the February 6th events. They asked her how much money she lost.
You were an investor in the defendant's company?
I was.
You lose some money?
I did.
About how much did you lose?
She was my sister, so I didn't really keep records. I didn't consider it more of it was a business deal, but I just thought she could, it would help me out. So, but when everything was said and done, I felt like it was around $50,000.
Okay. Did you ever get any of it back?
Well, that's what I ended up, I think, not having. So, I would give some, and I'd get some, give some, and get some, and then when it all ended, I think I was $50,000 around.
$50,000 around.
In the
okay.
whole.
In August of 2018, he went to her school and told her that he wanted her to deal with him for now on in the matters of business and only with him. Natalie sent that picture of Michael on the ground.
She texted me.
And she sent you this picture, correct?
She did.
What was your reaction to seeing that picture for the first time?
She sent it, and she sent a text that said something like, he's sick and won't get up, or something along. I just remember thinking, I know it sounds terrible, but I was really busy. There was kids and stuff all in my office, and I remember thinking, what does she mean he won't get up? And I thought, what does she want me to do about it?
Okay.
You know.
He also said that there was a divot in the counter and that's where he hit his head. But if your countertops are granite, how is there a divot in there? That's freaking stone. Like his head must have smacked really hard or something, because stone don't be moving like that. The next person to testify after Penny was Thomas Treadway. He was a friend of the family and also did the graphic design for TSG. He invested a significant amount into TSG, and he claims he only talked to Mike about the investment. He claimed that Michael wasn't being himself leading up to February 6th. Cross-examination, they talked about the day of and if he helped them get Mike to the car, and he did. After Michael died, they received text messages. He refused to talk to state police. His position was, no, thank you. Redirect. He saw documents on the witness tampering, and that's why he didn't want to talk to the police. He didn't trust them. Cross-examination again. Investigators in the case were named in the article. He stated that the article came from the Charleston cassette with a previous case, that there was a settlement in the case but no merit. And then the last witness for the day is Natalie and Michael's son. He talks about his relationship with his dad and how it was a good one. He talked about the November event and how his dad was always forgetting things afterward, and how he was agitated that Michael was always worried about money and wanted everything to be perfect for them. He said that his dad injected steroids. He said after his dad died, his mom was heartbroken. Day 7, Dr. Dragovich is a forensic pathologist, and he basically said with the information he had, you couldn't say that he was killed with insulin due to the fact his body was too badly decomposed, and it was irresponsible to do so. And then the prosecutors got up there and he was stumbling on his words because he didn't have all the information. The defense didn't give him everything associated with the event of his death. So they were up there clocking him every 5 seconds. The second witness of the day was Dr. Halsey. Natalie's primary doctor got on the stand. Him testifying honestly hurt her. He kind of confirmed she didn't have cancer without confirming it. He said that when Natalie came in the 5th and the 6th of February, that Natalie's results for flu and strep was negative, but that didn't mean she wasn't sick. He said based on her symptoms and the way that she was acting, that he does believe she was sick that day. He advised her not to travel. The last witness for the day was Dr. Priya Banerjee. She's a forensic pathologist. The defense put a picture of Michael's first autopsy up on the screen, and Donna started crying.
Dr. Banerjee, can you identify this exhibit?
Yes, so this is a hard copy printout of an array with 4 autopsy pictures with the same case number that I referenced, 19-3671, with Dr. Kubiczek's initials also on the placard in the photos. So these are at least 4 of the many autopsy photos that were submitted to me.
At this time, I'd like to move for admission of Dr. Banerjee's report and this exhibit.
Any objection, Mr. Truman?
No objection, thank you.
All right. Defense exhibits 12 and 13 will be admitted into evidence.
This was when Michael's body was 7 months in the ground. The reason they did this was to basically say, hey, can you find any evidence from a body that looks like this? Assholes. Anyway, they talked about how his heart was enlarged, that something was stressing his body. They kind of implied that he was using drugs as well. She testified that Michael's urine sample revealed his presence of benzodiazepine, a controlled drug for which he had no prescription for. Banerjee testified that the drug has the potential for abuse and misuse of the drug could lead to health issues, including sudden death due to heart arrhythmia. But remember when Natalie gave them to him? Remember she gave him Xanax, which is a benefit. Overall, this day was boring other than Miss Mem getting on that stand. She is funny, smart. The defense just didn't give her everything she needed, so it made her look stupid and biased. The doctors the defense brought up were trying everything to discredit and disprove Dr. Uribe's testimony. Natalie decided not to testify. Day 8, after the defense rested their case, the prosecutors brought up Robert Hinzmen as a rebuttal, and he basically testified that Michael didn't know about the Ponzi scheme and that Natalie carried on after he died. He also clarified that Betsy Lady was fake. So Bledsoe clarified it and Hinzmen clarified it. Then the defense cross-examined him. They asked him, show me in these texts that Michael didn't know. And Robert was like, do you want me to? I can. And the judge allowed him to.
Okay, on page 19, he's referencing the 1.6 million, having to wait for that. On page 20, when she says she's on the phone with Bank of America, he's asking, are we 1,000%? Because she's told him at that point that the money is at Bank of America.
Okay.
On page 21, he says, this is February 4th, the day that 3 days after he expected the money, he tells her that the money isn't there. She provides additional excuses for that. And then on page 22, dated February 4th again, she's telling him that the 88 million and 297 million will possibly show up today.
Not she's telling him.
4.8 million in the morning and 23.8 tomorrow. Again, another delay, and his response is shit.
All right. Okay. Show me.
You want me to go through the rest of the documents?
Hold on. Show me when there is going to be $108 million to be deposited in the account on October the 12th.
Yeah, it's right there on August 27th on the text that's being provided.
And I was like, ooh, he should have did that. He should have did that. Closing arguments, the prosecutors got up there first. Ashley Court made a cute little PowerPoint, and she had the timeline and everything laid out. She was like, boom, boom, close up. She did it. Boom. It was so good. Go watch it if you haven't. Then the defense got up there and rambled. It wasn't clean. It was very messy. And then Tom Truman got back up there with a printed out 0 and was like,
I'd like to talk with you about two numbers. And the first one is this one. 0. The defense is right. We're going to tell you that what you just heard is a lot of nonsense. And the reason why it's nonsense is the defense has no credible evidence to back up any of their theories as to why the state is wrong.
And then he pulled out a printed out 21 and plastered it on the screen. 21 for the blood glucose level that could have only been achieved in a non-diabetic person with a fatal dose of insulin. I was like, period, king. Anyways, the judge asked the jury if they wanted to start deliberation that day or wait till tomorrow, and they said no, that they will wait till tomorrow. Day 9, the jury deliberated for 2 hours and came back with their verdict.
Would the defendant please rise? In the case of State of West Virginia versus Natalie Cochran, case number 23-F-343K, the jury verdict is as follows. We, the jury on the issues, joined unanimously find the following. The defendant is guilty of murder in the first degree. The verdict form is signed by foreperson of the jury. It is dated 1/29/2025. There are no marks on the portion of the verdict form pertaining to involuntary manslaughter.
Some of the jury has spoken after the fact, saying that they found an argument between Michael and Natalie about a utility the day before he died and some other stuff that wasn't mentioned in the courtroom, but that was in evidence and that it was given to them. The judge asked if they wanted to continue to the mercy hearing, which would determine if Natalie got parole after 15 years. The defense didn't have all of their witnesses ready, so they decided to do it the next day. Day 10. They did opening statements. Our family went first. Penny Lowery was the first to get up there, and she basically just asked the jury to give mercy. And she talked about how, like, when Michael and Natalie were kids, that she had them babysit for her.
I remember one time, I was thinking last night, that I asked them to babysit for me when my daughter was a little baby, and they were so excited. They weren't married yet, and they came over and kept her, and I was gone for a few hours, and she was awful. And I came home, and Michael said, we are never having kids. But then they had these beautiful 2 kids, and I just loved them so much.
And I thought that was really sweet and funny. Then it was Sharon England, Natalie's aunt, and she basically guilt-tripped them like guilt tripped the jury for judging her niece and basically said that they were going to go to hell for it. She was weaponizing religion, but yeah, she asked to give her mercy. Made me freaking ooh.
You were talking about the Bible and the teachings of Jesus. Are you familiar with the 10 Commandments?
Yes, I am.
So you know one of those is thou shalt not kill.
I do.
Do you believe that we're judged by that as well?
Yes, I do. I also believe God will forgive those, and He's asking us to forgive if we want to be forgiven.
Rachel Carrico got up there. Natalie's her aunt. She said that her dog died a couple of weeks ago, and Natalie called to check on her, and that Natalie's has always been there for her. When she was cross-examined, they asked her about her dog dying.
Not to revisit this day, but anybody that's experienced putting a pet down knows how awful that is. And you got pretty emotional kind of recapturing that terrible day.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what it's like to be a mom and lose your son?
Be hard.
As understatements go, being hard would probably work, but it would be a lot more than just being hard, wouldn't
I'm
it?
sorry, I can
barely hear the prosecutor. I would like to
speak after you.
Yes, sir. It would be more than hard to lose a son, correct?
I would say so.
Larry Jessup went up there. It's basically talked about how Michael was a son to him, and he loved Mike. He kind of made me sad, and then he pleaded for mercy for his daughter. Then it was Daphne and her mother. She pissed me off. She blamed Michael for the Ponzi scheme, even though her daughter was the one convicted for doing the crime. She claimed that they weren't victims, even though they lost over $70,000. Whatever. Angie Martin is a friend of Natalie. She met Natalie after Michael's death. She's pled for mercy. Then the kids went up, and then it was the prosecutor's turn. My girl Stephanie went up there, and she had 2 words, leave her mouth, and Victor objected.
Were you pretty good friends?
I thought so.
You thought so. And did some things happen that led you to change your mind on that?
Yes.
Tell us what that was.
She lied to us. She manipulated us. My son.
I'm already going to object this, unless we have some specific testimony. We just.
All right, perhaps we should establish a foundation as to who, what, when, and where, Mr. Truman.
Yes, sir.
She went on and told the jury how Natalie lied to them about the investment, how she drugged her name through the mud when she went on a cute little media tour in 2019 and lied about her. And then her husband got up there, John Hamilton, my man. He said Michael was a good friend to him. He went on and said he and his wife received blame for Michael's death.
You said something on direct concerning children losing their father.
Yes.
They also lost the mother, right?
Yes, because she killed their father.
I didn't ask you why, sir. I asked you a simple question.
Yes.
You don't like Natalie Cochran, do you?
I don't like that she killed Mike.
Do you not like Natalie Cochran?
I wouldn't say I like her or dislike her, sir. As far as I'm concerned right now, sir, she's a criminal.
So the answer is no, I don't like her. Is it?
If you want to put it that way, sir.
And then Christopher Davis, my favorite, one of my favorites, can't forget about Stephanie, got up there and he made me cry. I cried my eyes out. If any of my friends are watching this video, y'all better have my back like Chris had Michael's. That's all I gotta say.
You are Chris Davis?
Yes, sir.
And you had testified before this jury previously. Tell us your relationship with Michael Cochran.
Mike was one of my best friends. And, you know, we did a lot together and spent a lot of time together. And, you know, we not only personally, but we coached sports together and, you know, vacationed together. And he was he is a dear friend.
You miss him?
I do. Mike was he was a very strong man. He's a good man. And he would want me to be strong now as well. And he was a good man. A very good man. He wasn't the best father, the best friend, or the best husband. But I'm not either. But he's not what you heard he was. He loved his family. He took care of his family. He loved his friends. He loved his community. Spent a lot of time in the community. He loved life. He wasn't sick. He wasn't ready to die. He was healthy. Even up until the day he died. He had plans. He had lots of plans. He was doing lots of things. He couldn't wait to the things he was doing. And that was also for his family.
Y'all, this grown man crying was literally making me cry. I asked him how much money he invested, and he said $511,000. He said that he got back around $50,000.
Who offered you the reinvestment opportunities?
Natalie.
And that was after Mike died?
Yes.
Is it fair to say you were a strong supporter of the defendant until you found out that things were not what you thought they would, what they appeared to be?
Yeah, I believe that's fair because we trusted her. As my wife testified as well, you know, we trusted her.
Was that trust violated?
Yeah, because, you know, we trusted her with the most precious thing to us, our family, our son, our kid, you know, with respect, because as Jennifer said, you know, she would ask her questions about diabetes and things like that. And so, yeah, that was absolutely violated, even on the day that, the way she perpetrated it to Jennifer to even get insulin. And that lie that was perpetrated, and even throughout this trial, attempted to continue to lie about that. And
I'm going to object again.
They asked him about mercy.
I think this jury has been here for 3 weeks. And this jury's heard everything they need to know. They don't need my opinion, don't need my thoughts, and you don't need me preaching at you. You know what you know. So with all due respect, I don't have opinion for these folks. I thank you. I know Mike would thank you.
That's all the questions the state has. Thank you.
Then the cross-examination. They said that he had the opportunity to witness Natalie's good deeds and being active in the community. He got an attitude with Victor, and I loved it. They even had to strike the answer that he gave.
Well, to answer your question directly, you started it out, I would agree with you. I don't agree with you.
Okay, all right.
So now let me further state. I witnessed a lot of deeds, good, bad. The reason that I can't say I agree with you because I can't sit here and say that I believe any of those deeds were done in good, bad, or irrelevant fashion because the truth of the matter is, was it a lie then as it is a lie now? Or was some of it true?
All right.
Or was some of it false? So we don't agree.
Okay. Mr. Davis, let me ask you this. Did you ever see Natalie being involved in any volunteer work?
We were all involved in volunteer work.
No, please answer my question. Have you ever seen her involved in any volunteer work?
We were all involved in volunteer work.
Your Honor, this is.
All right, please answer the question pertaining to Natalie, if you would, Mr. Davis.
Volunteer work requires you to do that because you're doing it for the benefit of others, and therefore it's hard for me to answer, was it volunteer or not? That's a very subjective question, and although I don't answer it the way you want me to, I can tell you subjectively, was it volunteer? I don't know. But I do know there was activity. I don't know if it was volunteer or not.
Your Honor, I move to strike that answer as non-responsive.
They continued asking him other questions on Natalie's character. They asked him if he was Natalie's attorney at one point, and he said that he represented the family on other occasions.
But then she filed an ethics complaint against you with the State Disciplinary Board, right?
Yes, she did.
Okay. And those are never pleasant.
It was not.
No. Okay.
Are you interested in the outcome?
No, I'm not asking about the outcome.
Because it was dismissed.
Of course it was. Then you answered something that I didn't ask, but that's fine.
You're welcome.
That made me smile, not gonna lie. Then they asked him if she was a good mom to her kids, and y'all, this nearly took me out. This is a response.
If I believe then what I believed?
No, from your observations.
I mean, if you're asking me as I sat here today in this chair, do I believe she's a good mother to her children? That's the question you're asking me? Or you asked me, do I believe she was a good mother to her children before?
Mr. Davis, I just asked you whether you observed her being a good mother to her children.
Define good mother.
Did she care for them? Did she provide them with food? Did she have a nice relationship with them? All of this that goes into the definition of a good mother.
I believe, under what I thought before, during those times, yes.
Okay.
But I don't believe that as I sit here and think now.
Because she was conniving financially, she somehow was feeding these children falsely? Or what are you testifying to? Because she was doing something that was financially horrible, you're saying you're not sure that she was a good mother to these children from your observation?
I believe exposing your children to what has now occurred and what those folks there affirmed is not a good mother.
Okay. From your response to the prosecutor's question, I take it that you're not condemning her to life in prison and to never have a chance to become a person that you knew before the financial scheme, right?
I would not invade the jury's providence to make that decision.
Okay.
I wouldn't do it before, and I won't do it now.
Okay.
They don't need me to give them that decision.
Well, thank you for your sincere answer. Thank you.
I'll give you the opportunity to address the ethics complaint the defendant filed against you. How did that come to pass?
Once she was sentenced to federal prison, she filed the complaint. It was answered. The evidence was submitted to the state bar, and the state bar dismissed her complaint against me as not being found any evidence to support the same. And it was at that time that, as part of that evidence, the investigation included in that was that this investigation for this case was pending at that time. And there was questions as to whether or not what was really the intent behind it, whether to try to intimidate witnesses or not.
In any event, it didn't work, did it?
It did not.
The next person they called up was Tony McCall. She talked about her husband and how he died from leukemia at the age of 58. Then they asked about the scholarship.
What is it?
That was the fake scholarship that my son received.
And in fact, I think what's been marked for identification is state 2. Is that the actual document he received? Or
Yes.
One similar to that?
Yes.
You said fake scholarship. Tell us about that, please.
Natalie called me one day, and she said that she was doing a scholarship in Mike's memory, and that she was given one to Dylan because she knew that Mike would want him to have it.
Can you put a time frame on when that happened?
Let's see, my son graduated in 2019, and it was probably, well, it was before they do the program for the kids that got scholarships at the school, which is closer to the end of the year. So this is probably February, March of 2019, March, April, maybe? I don't remember.
Could have been May?
It could have been.
Okay.
It could have been.
It's a while back.
Okay.
Now, stage 2, that's actually what your son receives, correct?
Yes, but it was big. It was about this big. It was,
Okay.
It was pretty.
Yeah, very pretty.
It was.
Graphically done. Did Dylan ever get any of that money from the scholarship?
No.
They cross-examined and tried telling her that the reason her son didn't get his scholarship was because the government froze her assets. She didn't have the money. She didn't have the money. She was never going to pay them that. Ed Bolt got up there, and this is Michael's stepdad. He talked about how he loved Natalie and even thought of her as a daughter. They asked if the jury should grant Natalie mercy, and he said no. He started reading his statement and asked you why he doesn't want Natalie to get mercy, and he went in. And he made me cry too.
A cold-blooded, calculated, unremorseful murder. Michael's murder has been referred to as a diabolical act of evil. I miss him. I miss, hey buddy, what's going on? What are you up to? Seems like a small thing, but it's the small things that I cherish most. I think of Michael every day.
This is where he went in, y'all.
Evil must be held accountable. Natalie Cochran must be held accountable. Life in prison for a premeditated murder may seem fair, but what I think is just would be to take a rope over here to the courthouse, throw it over the branch of that big oak tree. All right.
Yes, I agree.
It made me giggle a bit, not gonna lie, because just Southern Man, which is up there. That they cross-examined him and they tried to make it look like that Michael didn't like his parents, that he never saw them, and Mr. Bolt told them, kids grow up. They go on and they go on their own. We didn't see Mike because Natalie would always be like, Mike is sick and doesn't feel good and this and that. At one point, he was talking about how him and Mike were close.
So now we are learning that you didn't have such a great relationship, but it's of course Natalie Cochran's fault, right?
I would say that's a true statement, yes.
Right. And yet you're coming here asking for justice, as you call it, against this evil, acting like you've had this wonderful relationship with the man who was doing all these wonderful things around your house. And I'm sorry, sir, but you didn't, did you?
Well, I could point to these shoes that I'm wearing here now. Michael bought me these shoes.
I don't care about your shoes, sir.
Okay.
Tell me whether
I think we had a very good relationship.
I also want to know the shoe story. I want to know about it. Ed said, we had a great relationship, even considering that he wasn't his father. Then Donna Bolt got up there. That's his mom. You know. Anyways, Donna had pictures of her son put up, and they objected to that, obviously.
And we do have a couple of demonstrative exhibits for this witness.
Okay. If you'll raise your right hand, please, ma'am. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, Your Honor, I do.
You may have a seat right there.
I object to this, Your Honor. This is to inflame the jury.
Your Honor, these are pictures of Michael Cochran while he was alive. If anything was inflammatory, it was photos of his autopsy shown during the trial.
Has not been introduced in the evidence. We have absolutely no reason to bring these exhibits to court. I move to remove them.
These are demonstrative exhibits, Your Honor. They don't need to be moved into evidence.
No, they are only here to
well, inflame the jury. Nothing.
I don't think I can permit these to be displayed. I'm fearful that the prejudicial value would outweigh any probative intent. They haven't been admitted, and I think that they need to be taken down.
Yes, Your Honor.
Donna said that she loved Natalie very much because they were married almost 19 years. She kind of talked about how Natalie put a strain on their relationship with Michael. They asked her if she thought Natalie deserved mercy.
Do you believe that this defendant deserves mercy in this matter?
I do not.
Can you tell the jury why you believe she doesn't deserve mercy?
Because she didn't give Michael any mercy. She let him lay on the floor for hours and hours at the home. She let him lay on the couch, and she never got him any help.
Then she looked at Natalie, y'all, and she addressed her.
So what about the loss of your son caused by this defendant leads you to believe that she does not deserve mercy?
Well, she's going to say that we never had a relationship with Michael Brandon, but she's wrong. She's a liar.
She talked about how Natalie was acting when they took the ventilators off of him and how he didn't want to go to hospice.
Did you know that your son had a living will to go to the hospice and be taken off life support? Did you know that or not?
I know you said he never wanted to go to
Ma'am,
hospice.
did you know that? Or
Did
no?
he tell you that, Natalie?
Your Honor, I'm sorry. The witness is addressing my client. I object to this, and I would like an answer.
All right, pose the question again, and then try to answer the question, please, Ms.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, did you know that Michael had a living will to go to hospice and be taken off life support if need be?
No.
No, okay.
Then she caught an attitude with Victor, and this made my day, not gonna lie.
And you attributed to Natalie Cochran,
Yes.
who prohibited them from having any contact with you?
Yes, what they've been told.
Okay, what they've been told. You have absolutely no clue what she told them, do you?
You don't either.
Ma'am, Your Honor,
Just please, Ms. Bolt, just
Yes, sir,
answer
I'm
the
sorry.
question.
Yes, sir.
you have no clue what she told them, do you? Do you?
I can pretty much
Ma'am.
guess.
You don't know,
I'm not going to answer that yes or no, sir.
Your Honor.
Please answer it yes or no. It's a relatively simple question,
Okay.
Ms. Bolt.
So you asked me. Ask it again, sir.
Whether you know, Your Honor, I'll withdraw this question.
The last one they called up was Robert Hinzmen. He talked about her fraudulent activities because this is about her character, obviously. Cross-examination. They asked if he would recommend mercy or not, and he said he doesn't have an opinion on that.
What does your testimony add to what the jury already doesn't know?
We didn't specifically talk about post-death conduct, and we're talking about her character and the fact that she continued to deceive people following the death of Mr. Cochran, which is a character trait.
Right. And based on that, you are asking the jury not to give her mercy.
I am rendering no opinion in any regard regarding that. I'm just describing her post-death conduct.
So you're just describing that in vacuum. Yes, she's a fraud, right?
She's a fraud, yes.
She's a fraud.
And they do closing arguments. Ashley Accord does her closing argument. She did good. Stanley got up there and did closing arguments. And he kind of did good too, though. Both sides kept talking about how long she was going to be in jail. And Ashley said it could be concurrent. So that means she could only serve jail a couple of years for Mike's death. Then Stanley was saying that she would have to be in jail for a minimum of 15 years. Then they talked about her health and how she has an implant for her heart and that the medical system in prison is awful. Like, okay, boo-hoo, get over it. Before I tell y'all what the jury concluded, if you made it this far, leave a black heart emoji in the comment section. It took them about an hour and 20 minutes to deliberate, and this is what they came back with.
Will the defendant please rise? In the case of State of West Virginia versus Natalie Page Cochran, case number 23-F-343K, the verdict is as follows. Having found the defendant guilty of murder of the first degree, we, the jury, recommend the following. We, the jury, unanimously do not recommend mercy.
They slayed, to be honest, not gonna lie. Anyways, she will be in prison for life with no parole. Anyways, Natalie Cochran has already appealed. It took her 5 seconds. She was on it. Natalie Cochran's appeal for retrial in her husband's murder case was denied, though. Cochran's defense attorneys, Matthew Victor and Stanley Selden, argued that the jury pool was tainted by the extensive publicity surrounding Cochran's federal Ponzi scheme case, but the judge denied their request for a new trial. But what's crazy is that they offered her a plea deal. Option 1 was that she'll serve jail time for 15 years, and this would have started from when she was on home confinement. She would have to serve 15 years before she was eligible for parole. And then the second option was that she would be in jail 10 years, but this would start when she went in May of 2021. She would have to serve 10 years before she was eligible for parole. Which, y'all, she's an idiot. And she went with the trial anyway because she thought she was going to get away with it, and she did it. And now she's in there for life. She should have just pled guilty. Anyways, I'm doing a reaction series over on my vlog channel. I am reacting to the trial and interviews that some of the victims have done. So go over there and watch, like, and subscribe. The channel is Olan Hulion Vlogs. If you haven't already, please subscribe, like, and comment, and push that notification bell so you can be notified when I post another video. And let me know what y'all would like to see next. I'm thinking about posting a theory next week, but I'm not sure, so let me know what y'all want to see. See y'all next week. Oh.